if it goes quiet and there aren't any questions, do you force it, or do you?
No. Well, I've never not had any questions.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm talking to Kirsty Milligan, who is a stylist and an expert in personal branding. Now, we did you did your presentation there earlier. I didn't hear much about clothing or colour coordination or anything like that.
Well, no, you didn't, and there's a specific reason for that. I really like to get into the foundation of where our brand is coming from and why our brain is doing the things that it's doing around first impressions. And to understand that fully first, I think, is really important before we get into that clothes aspect. And the thing about clothes and colours and all of that sort of thing is it's highly individual. So it's kind of impossible when you've got 50 people in a room to style everyone or give generic advice that they don't really know if it applies to them or not. And I don't like that. I don't like doing that. What I do like is opening their mind to how our brain functions around first impressions and how we can use that information to get what we want out of life.
So I mean that leads on nicely to my next question. You said what was it? 11 decisions made in the first 7 seconds of speaking with somebody. That's right, isn't it?
That's right. That's a study out of an American university that we actually make 11 decisions in the first 7 seconds of meeting someone, and most of them are quite subconscious or unconscious decisions, and we file those away and we keep them. It's never changed. We never go back to change that first impression. In fact, we actually only just collect information to prove ourselves right. That's in conjunction with our first impression, and that's called confirmation bias. So if we meet someone like in an interview situation and we love them at the door, by the time they've sat down, we've made our 11 decisions, and they're around capability, they're around trustworthiness, they're around sophistication and education level, even sex and sexuality. So we've made those decisions already, and then if we're only going to gather information to prove ourselves correct, it's a really powerful 7 seconds that we can use to make sure that we get the yes we want.
Does that mean first impressions are actually accurate? Because a lot of the information we receive from someone actually, or most of it actually isn't verbal, is it?
That's right. So only about 7% of the information we first collect is based on the verbal communication. The rest is non-verbal cues. And it's an interesting question that you ask, is it accurate? The reality is it's accurate to us. So once I have a first impression of you, I won't change that. I'll only collect information to support that. How I make those decisions, how I come to those decisions are all based around my unconscious biases. So if I have an unconscious bias, for example, if I have an unconscious bias that men are smarter than women, and I'm being rolled into the ER and I have the choice of a male doctor or a female doctor, I would choose the male doctor in an instant based off my first impression and my unconscious bias. And we have those biases and we tuck them away because we've been told that judging people on sight is really rude. Most of us have the unconscious bias that fat people are lazy. We just do. We don't like to talk about it anymore because we think that it's unkind to say those things and it's unfair and it might be wrong. It doesn't change the fact that we actually have that bias and we're making decisions based off it. The only way that we can change a thought process is if we actually recognise that it's there in the first place. And understanding the triggers in our brain for first impressions is one of the first ways of being able to be conscious about the things that we're thinking about other people, and about the way we want to present ourselves to the world.
So, but what's that got to do with styling?
Well, we can dress anyone up in pretty clothes. Any given day, there's a buttload of pretty clothes out there. But for someone to feel genuine and authentic and themselves, they need a specific set of beautiful clothes. So what your brain function has to do around styling is I want you to get it right for you from the inside out. I want to know the person on the inside first and what their mission and vision is and what they want to achieve for themselves, what their style personality is, so that I can dress that person, so I can get it right for them in a way that's comfortable and authentic. We don't need people running around the world pretending to be something that they're not. And for me, that's the importance of styling. I know I work a little differently than most other stylists, but for me, that's the most important part. I like people more than I like clothes. I got to get the person right first.
Sorry, you were talking about if you're in a room and you're speaking in a higher pitched voice than the other person, that means that you're intimidated. I mean, that's just one small thing, isn't it?
Yes, that is one of the small things. There's a lot to our leadership presence, and there's a lot we convey with our body language, and certainly a lot with our tone of voice. In Australia, we tend to speak up all of the time, which makes it sound like everything's a question. So we don't really know what we're saying, but it's a really nice day. Is it? And that's one of the things we encounter. People who are strong leaders don't do that. Yeah. People who are strong leaders and who influence a room walk in a certain way. They hold themselves a certain way. They move with purpose, and they finish their sentences down.
And that's not just chief executives. I mean, that could be anyone and everyone that wants to get their point across, I guess.
That's exactly right. We will be attracted to that person that has those qualities, and sometimes it's more important that the EA to the CEO has those qualities around influence, because they're going to see more of the business more commonly than the CEO actually will.